morning, children. Today we are going to talk about participles. Yay! Okay. All right. So a participle is a verb that is being used as an adjective. We do this in English by taking adjectives and adding ing or ing onto the end of it. For example, below we have the man runs. If we were going to describe this dude who's running, we would say the running man. Runs is the verb, and running is the present active participle form of it. And this is what we are going to be talking about how to do in Latin. Participles in Latin, thank God, and identifying them are fairly straightforward. You will look for the ins and intus endings, and they always follow the third declension. So you have to take the Latin verb. We have three examples down here: resurgo, resurgere, pugno, pugnare, and curro, currere. Resurgo, meaning rise again, when turned into a participle, becomes resurgens, which would then in turn come out to mean rising again. And notice how the ending is kind of cut off and replaced with an ns. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Fun fact, this is actually the motto of the city of Atlanta, rising again. Because of that war criminal Sherman come through and burn everything down. So, rise up. Go Falcons, by the way. Either way. All right, pugno, pugnare, meaning fight or to fight, will then turn into pugnans, which would then in turn mean fighting. So if you wanted to say the fighting man, you'd say we're pugnans. And down here at the bottom we have curro, currere, which means to run. You turn it into currens, and then it means running. So running man would be we're currens. Let's look at an extended example of what it looks like. Now it is treated like an adjective, and so it has to agree with its noun in case, number, and gender. You can take a second to write in this example. So I used, we were doing all the different forms of the running slave, which is servus currens in the nominative singular. So you'll see up here servus currens, which then turn out to mean the running slave. Then we have servi currentus. These endings are different because servi is a second declension adjective, or as a second declension noun. Currens, it always stays in the third declension. It won't change to match the second declension if you remember going over adjectives earlier. So servi currentus, these are both genitive, singular, and masculine, and they come out to mean, when you put them together, of the running slave. So on and so forth, down we go. Servo currenti means to or for the running slave. Servum currentum means the running slave. Servo currenti, again, can also mean, the dative and the ablative share similar endings. It can also mean by or with the running slave, and as always, it can also be the object of a sid space preposition. This by and with, it's been down in the ablative singular and ablative plural. Those have been there. Those have been on our charts, but I've never really addressed it. This is something we're going to start to see soon. The ablative will be left by itself with no preposition, and when that's the case, it'll typically have some sort of word tacked onto the beginning of it when you translate it in English, usually by or with. That all gets super complicated, and we'll deal with that later. But I just wanted to address it since it's here for the first time and I'm actually acknowledging it. One last thing. Remember how oh God, I need this to go away. Here, I'm going to move my mouse and let it disappear. In the vocative, you'll notice that servus turns into serve currens. Remember that second declension nouns that end with a us in the nominative singular, those are the only things that change the way they look in the vocative singular form, and that us will turn into an e. Literally every other declension and ending set, it'll just stay the same as the nominative singular. As you can see with currens, just stays the same. Okay, so participles, how they're used. They are used mostly in two ways. First way is as a simple adjective. The participle, it just, you treat it like any other adjective. It'll typically follow the noun that it's describing. So the example we have is uxor amans, which means the loving wife. Amans coming from amo amare, which means to love. Or you have canes latrantes, the barking dogs. And there's one thing I actually want to go back and point out. This involves just remembering how to find noun stems, but notice how it's carens in the nominative, and then the stem from then on is nt, and then you add on the ending. Remember, to figure out the stem for a noun or an adjective, you look at the second principal part, the genitive, and then you just take off the ending. So, and then replace it. So carens turns into carentis, carentis turns into carenti, carentem, so on and so forth. Okay, so back to here. So we have canes latrantes, which means the barking dogs. Notice how this agrees in case, they're both nominative. Number, they're both plural. And gender, these are both masculine. And remember that third declension shares endings for the masculine and the feminine. It's only the neuter that you'll have to worry about. And I'll throw curveballs like those at you later. The other more involved way that a participle is used is to introduce a participle phrase, which is something that we have in English quite a bit. Typically they come in the middle of a sentence or at the end of a sentence or the beginning of a sentence. Either way, they're set off with commas generally. But a participle phrase is just an extended adjective phrase that describes its noun in a more complex way than its use as a simple adjective, often indicating where and or when. Participle still has to agree in case, number, and gender with the noun or participle phrase it's describing. So if the noun it's describing is nominative singular, then the participle will also have to be nominative singular. So the example we have is fer currens perviis Romae milites fugit, which comes out to mean the thief running through the streets of Rome flees the soldiers. Now notice this is nominative singular. This is also nominative singular. This little grouping right here all applies to the thief. It has nothing to do with the soldiers. I hope that makes sense. All right. So how to form these things? It's not that difficult. There's a couple of things you need to pay attention to. So you start with the present stem, which is you take the second principal part and you take off that RE and add an NS. So we have amo, amare, right here. You take off the RE, you're left with ama. You take that ama, add an NS onto it, and you get amans. Then so on and so forth. You take off the NS, and if you want to make it genitive, it'll be ntis, and then from then on, you just take off the is and replace it with an I, M, A, all those different endings. It's this simple for first, second, and third conjugation nouns, which I know we only touched on briefly at the beginning of the year. We'll have some review over that and how to tell which conjugation a verb belongs to. For verbs that are in the third IO and the fourth conjugations, that E, so like if you took off the RE off facere, you'd be left with face. That E would actually turn into an IE. So you take facere, take off the ERE, since we don't need that E anymore. You replace that first E with an IE and that RE with an NS. That was a mouthful. But basically, you're left with faciens. You'll notice it will probably, we've done so much Latin that doing it, forming it improperly will sound weird. So if you're left with like facens, may not sound so right to you, and facines won't sound right to you. Faciens will probably sound more natural. Or it won't, who knows. Either way, so here's some practice. We're going to practice transforming the following verbs into present active participles, giving the English translation as well. So we have amo, amare, amawi, amatu. So we take that second principal part, hack off that RE, and then add NS. So we're left with amans. Same thing, so on and so forth down. For what it's worth, the Number 4, conficio, conficere. That is a third IO verb. So pay attention to what we just said on the slide before about what we do when forming participles of third IO and fourth conjugation verbs. Pause this video to work on this for a minute and resume when you are ready for the answers. All right. So you'll see that amo, amare turns into amans, which will then mean loving. Kaido, kaidere turns into kaidens, which means killing. Castigo, castigare turns into castigans, meaning scolding or nagging. Conficio, conficere turns into conficiens. Notice that E turned into an IE over here. And that'll mean causing. It can also mean a lot of other stuff. Conficio is just one of those words that has 20 different meanings. And then number 5, debeo, debere, comes out to debens, which can mean owing. And that will end it for this presentation about present active participles. If you have any questions, let me know. We're going to have a lot of practice over this. This is something that comes up quite a bit. And understanding the concept in general is super important because we're about to learn a whole bunch of different other participles as well. So understanding that participles are verbs being turned into adjectives, and that in Latin they act just like other adjectives. They need to agree in case, number, and gender. That will take you a long way because it's about to get crazy. You guys have a good day.